The fourth public hearing of the January 6th committee investigating the insurrection at the Capitol is in the books.
We heard from 4 live witnesses about former President Trump's pressure campaign on state and local officials to overturn the results of the election. One witness, Gabriel Sterling, Chief Operating Officer for the Office of Georgia's Secretary of State, addressed what it was like combating election misinformation.
Oftentimes, I felt our information was getting out, but that there was a reticence of people who needed to believe it because the President of the United States, whom many looked up to and respected, was telling them it wasn't true, despite the facts. And I have characterized at one point it was kind of like a shovel trying to empty the ocean. And yes, it was frustrating. I even have family members who I had to argue with about some of these things, and I would show them things, and the problem you have is you're getting to people's hearts.
Joining us here in the studio is former Watergate prosecutor Nick Akerman. Nick, we've been talking with you about the powerful testimony that we heard today. I also want to ask you about what we heard from Congressman Adam Schiff just moments ago. He was asked about the Department of Justice and whether they were going to be pursuing a way to comply people who we haven't been hearing from, who are also potentially key witnesses, to come before Congress and stand before this committee. Given your role as a former Watergate prosecutor, can you tell us more about what's going on behind the scenes?
Well, I don't think the Justice Department, other than the 2 prosecutions that have been referred to them for criminal prosecution, really can do anything to compel people to testify before the committee. I mean, the committee itself has civil contempt powers. The Supreme Court has recognized forever that the committee can actually bring people in, and if they don't cooperate and don't testify, assuming they don't take the Fifth Amendment privilege, that they can be incarcerated by the committee until such time as they actually do cooperate. Now, I don't know why the committee has made a decision that they're not going to do that. I'm not sure why that is, but they do have that power.
Nick, I want to get back to some of the testimony we heard today. Arizona House Speaker Rusty Bowers was the first to testify. He got emotional describing why he would not bend to Mr. Trump's fake elector scheme. Let's listen to some of what he had to say.
It is a tenet of my faith that the Constitution is divinely inspired of my most basic foundational beliefs. And so for me to do that because somebody just asked me to is foreign to my very being. I will not do it.
I know we talked about this earlier, but how significant would you say Bowers' testimony was today?
I think it was extremely significant, mainly when you put it in the context of what Brad Rathensberger testified to. I mean, if you look at the transcript of the conversation with Donald Trump, and then what Mr. Bowers testified to, it's the same nonsense that Trump is spewing out to both of them. At the time that we got this transcript and it came about, all we knew about was Trump's effort in one state, being Georgia. But now we've got another state, Arizona, where it's obvious that they were doing this with everybody. They were doing it with all of the battleground states. And now we've got corroboration from Mr. Bowers. I think what was really significant today, though, is we got a preview of what the criminal prosecution could be in Georgia. And I think that's where the real action is going to be.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And you mentioned Georgia Secretary of State Brad Rathensberger. He reaffirmed his commitment to the accuracy of Georgia's election count. Let's listen to what he had to say.
The numbers are the numbers. The numbers don't lie. We had many allegations, and we investigated every single one of them. In fact, I challenged my team, did we miss anything? Every single allegation we checked. We ran down the rabbit trail to make sure that our numbers were accurate.
Nick, we had spoken before the testimony about how crucial you thought Rathensberger's testimony was going to be today. Did you hear anything that surprised you, or was that basically what you expected?
It's kind of what I expected. I mean, he has talked about this before. But he really put the lie to Donald Trump on every one of these issues that was raised during that phone call. And to me, that was pretty significant because this means that the DA in Fulton County has a really strong witness. Not only do they have this on tape, but they have a strong witness. And they also have the possibility of calling the current governor of Georgia, who was also browbeaten by Trump and asked to convene the state legislature, asked not to certify the vote. So when you combine these two witnesses with the tape recordings that they have from Mr. Rathensberger, as well as the chief investigator that we heard today, my prediction is Donald Trump is going to be indicted in Georgia. That's where it's going to happen.
Yeah, well, that's a strong prediction. If it happens, you heard it here first.
That's right. That's right.
But Nick, I do want to ask you about former Georgia elections worker Wandra Shea Moss, who, we heard her describe the way she was forced to go into hiding after receiving death threats, how she is afraid to go to the grocery store even. Let's play some of her emotional testimony. Let's listen.
I felt horrible. I felt like it was all my fault. Like, if I would have never decided to be an elections worker, like, I could have done anything else, but that's what I decided to do. And now people are lying and spreading rumors and lies and attacking my mom. I'm her only child. Going to my grandmother's house. I'm her only grandchild. I felt horrible for picking this job and being the one that always wants to help and always there, and never missing not one election. I just felt like it was my fault for putting my family in this situation.
I mean, just to remind folks, this is an elections worker, right? These are the people that we need to help run our elections.
An ordinary citizen.
An ordinary citizen trying to do what's right. She also testified that the USB drive Rudy Giuliani accused her of handing to her mother during her elections work was really a ginger mint. So, after hearing all of that, how did those witnesses do today, do you think, debunking Mr. Trump and his allies and their accusations against all of these people?
Well, I think it brought it down to a human level. It showed the impact that what Donald Trump has on the ordinary citizen and people that he just doesn't care about. His only concern was himself. He is a narcissist. He only cares about himself, made up shamelessly this lie about the election being a fraud, spreading that lie without any consideration of the impact it has on individuals. And it's the same thing that happened on January 6th with people being killed, maimed, and hurt. He couldn't have cared less. His only concern was somehow trying to stay in power.
The danger was, as Gabriel Sterling said, because he was president, so many people believed him.
Of course. I mean, it just shows you the power of the bully pulpit of the president. And that's why it's so important that we select people with good moral character. I mean, there's just no way around it. You have to believe in the president, and most people do.
That's right. Well, Nick Akerman, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your insight into all of this.
Thank you for having me.